Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Susan Niebergall on the podcast. She's an online coach. You can also follow her on YouTube. I'll leave a link to that at Susan Niebergall Fitness. She's coming to us all the way from DC, but most importantly, she's our current guest. Susan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what inspired and what motivated you to make that change and adapt that healthy and fit lifestyle?
I've been a gym rat for a long time. I started going into the gym in 1980, blah, blah, something, something in the 80s. And it was all aerobics then. It was all high impact aerobic classes. That's kind of where I started. And I loved it at the time because of the community. And from about 1995 through maybe 10, 12 years ago, I was working with trainers, different trainers all along the way. I loved that, but I was spinning my wheels through all of that because I was yo-yo dieting through all that. No one really hit the nutrition piece very well through the course of that. I got strong, then I would lose a little bit of weight, and then I would gain a lot of weight back, and then I just did this back and forth for the better part of 30 years, at least, maybe even more. I did Jenny Craig back in the 80s or early 90s. I don't even remember. Back when it first came out, wasn't that hard to do because they basically gave me my food and said, you eat this and you will lose weight. And I did. And I did. And the problem with that was you don't learn how to survive in the real world for long periods of time, which is what happened. So subsequently after that, it was just, 10 pounds came back on, lost about 4, 12 more came back on, would lose about 10. I mean, I just went through that cycle. I hooked myself up with a coach. And at that point, everything changed. And so I was 53 at that time, 54, something like that. So really the biggest change happened later in life.
Yeah. And I mean, that's awesome. And yeah, just really just seeing how all that's changed from there. Cause I mean, yeah, you're talking about the 80s. So many people were just in that aerobics craze and that was one of the huge things. I mean, I even remember just for laughs, sometimes me and my brother, we watch the intro to those like aerobics championships that they used to have on like ESPN. And it's the cheesiest thing ever. And I highly recommend if everyone wants to get a good laugh in, go and watch those. I mean, it's
watch the outfits,
yes.
Please watch the outfits. I did it. Yeah. I did it. I admit it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's definitely a time capsule. I mean, if you want to look up what the 1980s were really like, I mean, just look up the aerobics, and that is really that's basically the 80s in a nutshell for anyone out there that is interested in that. Yeah, I mean, and that's so awesome. But one of the things, I mean, one of the stereotypes that I love to bust, and I mean, it's gotten better the last 5 years with Instagram, but I mean, there's still so many women that have that fear where if they touch one weight, they're just going to, hulk out. And I mean, I know you started out with aerobics, but when you were getting started, did you ever have that fear? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you hear that all the time. What do you like to respond to that by?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, I could have had that fear. Honestly, it was so long ago. I don't remember really having that fear. I was always kind of a tomboy girl. So I always liked being strong. I wanted to hang with the guys. So getting strong didn't scare me. So I probably wasn't afraid of getting too bulky. That actually did appear a little later on in life, not back when I first started. But now, it's still out there. And what they don't understand is, by definition, toned is lean muscle mass. And you have to build some lean muscle if you want to see any kind of tone or definition or whatever adjective you want to describe. It doesn't matter. You have to build. And I think people assume you go from A to Z. You go from no muscle to I am the Hulk, it does take some trust. It takes some experience. It takes getting your feet wet, and it takes nurturing that with people. And I think the first time you lift something heavy off the ground, you feel a sense of confidence and empowerment that wasn't there before. And that starts building up. And so then the whole I'm getting bulky, all that goes to pot. And then if you keep your nutrition in check, it's not going to happen anyway. And then the whole science thing, that says you can't, as a woman, you can't get bulky. I mean, there's that.
Yep.
Let us not forget science. And and what it tells us, no matter how much we want to ignore it,
Oh, and I always say, I
you
mean,
know?
that always brings me up back to the story of when I was in college, getting bigger and stronger. One of the things, I mean, I had a really good friend who she came up to me and she said, like, I'm noticing all these changes that you're making, and I really want to go to the gym with you, but I'm just afraid that I'm going to get too bulky. And then I told her, I said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go to clubs, when we go to get something to eat, weighs more than 90% of the dumbbells in the gym, and you're not getting an ounce
Yeah,
of muscle from lugging that thing around. I mean, she
yeah.
had a very heavy purse. I mean, I've carried a few women's purses, and hers was by far the heaviest. So
Oh, sure, yeah,
I don't know what she had in that thing, but yeah, so
but
and then once I convinced her, I mean, it's like, yeah, she went into the gym and she really really enjoyed it. And I mean, probably the biggest thing though, like we were talking about, because you specialize in women, and I mean, I love to ask this question because it applies so much to women, I think, more than it does men. But just the confidence boost that working out can give you, and just giving a new lifestyle and just getting healthy and strong. I mean, guys, let's face it, some guys, they walk into the gym and they're 300 pounds and they act like they own the place, and that's just the way how some of them act. But with women, just that confidence boost is so important, because I always say that confidence
hmm
is one of those things that you can take from the gym and you can apply that to everything in your life. What was that confidence boost like for you, and how have you used that in order to better your life?
Well, that's what you just said is exactly the truth. And I just did a post about how the benefits of strength is not just the physical part. I mean, that's one of them, obviously, but it's what you just said. It's the confidence that you take everywhere. That you may, like, for me, okay, starting a business in my 50s. Are you kidding me? I had a whole career before this.
Mhm,
I was an educator. I worked in the school system for 33 years. I retired
mhm,
3 years ago. And then I start a career. I would never have done that.
mhm,
I would never have done that. It's stuff like that that you can't, not necessarily quantify, but because it's a feeling. So it's hard to describe to
mhm,
somebody, but everyone that goes through it knows exactly what I'm talking
mhm,
about. And it will transcend to all parts of your life. For me, it was starting a business from scratch. I mean, I was already a certified trainer while I was still in the school system. I was just doing it part time, but then that ended. And now building a business from scratch, I don't know anything about business. All I wanted to do was help people.
yeah,
And so I went into it with that genuine interest. I want to help people. I don't need to make money from this. That's not why I do it.
mhm,
I just want to help people. And so starting a business from scratch is what gave, I mean, that confidence came from all the weight that I could lift. I guarantee you, and the women that I work with who have been afraid to pick up anything more than that 10-pound kettlebell, 10-pound kettlebells.
mhm,
Oh, those and the 5-pound pink dumbbells,
mhm,
you know, and there is a time and place for 5-pound dumbbells. Trust me,
mhm,
I still use them in training for certain things. Absolutely. But the one thing I don't use them for is when I'm training squats or something like that. I mean, it's just not needed. And when I see some of my clients early on who really hold back on weight, and that's one of the biggest mistakes middle-aged women make,
mhm,
is they don't push out of their comfort zone. They're afraid, but once they do, they get the little nudge out of that comfort zone. It's like all bets are off. I told a client the other day, she's new to me, and I told her, you don't need to squat with that 10-pound dumbbell anymore. You can go twice as much. I guarantee it. She goes, oh, there's no way I could do that. I bet.
mhm,
Do it. Go do it. And boom, of course she did it. And she's like, oh my God, I think I could do 10 more pounds. I know you can, and then she just had this big boost of confidence, like, wow, I can do this. And then I can do this applies to not only the training piece, but now it applies to the nutrition piece, which is where most people struggle with
mhm.
anyway, you know?
Oh yeah, that's one of the hardest things that, I mean, so many people just don't realize, because they just think, if I go to the gym and I start working out, I'll just automatically, put on muscle, or I'll get in better shape. But they just don't realize that the nutrition aspect is so important when it comes to that. But one of the questions that I love to ask, because everyone's genetics are differently, so it makes very interesting answers for my guests. But everyone always
Yeah.
has that one body part when they get started, working out and lifting weights, it really really takes off for them. And then everyone always has that one body part that really lags behind. I'll give you mine first. So for me, I mean, my back, I mean, I could lift back, like once a month, and it would still look really, really great. I think part of it is because when I was in my teens and early 20s in college, I had a job where I was, loading trucks all the time. So that might have had something to do with it too. But again, it's one of those freaky things where I just have a nice back. But for me, I'm 6'3", so my legs are just shot, where I mean, I got to train them into overdrive, like twice a week, just to get them to look like any semblance of anything. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
For me, my shoulders are probably the things that pop the
Mhm,
earliest for me. Shoulders and arms for sure. And then
We can see
the
that. Yep.
the yeah. The other side of that is probably hips, and thighs, hamstrings. But now I have them. And what's interesting, it took I probably started noticing my hamstrings maybe a year ago,
Mhm.
maybe 2 years ago. And that's pretty significant, consistent training and just nutrition being on point and trying to to make that happen and get stronger. And yeah, I mean, it takes time, but it also shows that just because you're in your 50s or whatever age you are,
Mhm.
it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Yep.
It just means you have to work to do it. And maybe at this time of life, is it going to be a little harder than someone maybe your age? I believe it is. I believe it is harder for us because our bodies are losing muscle mass just because of aging. We're fighting to maintain it, much less build it.
Mhm.
You know, so there's that. Our metabolisms get screwed up a little bit, and that's the other thing that middle-aged women love to blame. I used to think that of me. I used to think that was my problem, and that's not the problem at all. The problem is as we age, we get less active, and as a result of that, we're not burning as many calories as we used to. And then we're not adjusting what we're eating either. Um, so all of that is the perfect storm. It's not one thing or the other, but yeah, it's not too late to make these kind of changes. You just have to work.
Oh, absolutely. And I always like to compare it to, like being a mad scientist where you got to make like your own concoction to figure out, what works best for you because everyone's different. Because I always say, like, if you were to go to the gym, with 100 people in it, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape, whether it comes down to, what exercise they do, how many reps they do, what their diet is,
Yeah.
what their nutrition is. So many things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were starting to sort of figure out what worked best for you? Because I always say, like,
Yeah.
if you were to walk up to someone and say, like, oh, hey, this body part of yours looks great, what works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
Nutrition's always the priority. And number two, I came from training 6 to 7 days a week, high volume, high rep, high weight, go, 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 with ironically making zero progress. But I did it out of fear of not making progress. So the irony was, I really wasn't making any progress, but I was so caught up in afraid to make a change that I couldn't see that. So literally, I'm burning myself out. I'm making no progress. And because I'm training so much and so hard, I'm eating more than I should. So it's a perfect concoction of no wonder you're not losing any weight, you know, until I get to my coach who scaled me back from 6 days a week to four. And I thought I was going to lose my mind. And I did my first workout from him, and I'm like, that's it. Where's like the other 15 million sets of things that I should be doing? And it was like a withdrawal for me. And I remember texting him on one of my first rest days, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do on this day? And he's like, well, you can kind of rest, or if you don't want to rest, go get on a bike and just pedal, but don't let your heart rate get above blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So I went to the gym, sat on a bike, and just did this low grade pedal. And I thought, oh my God, I can't do this. I mean, it was miserable for me. That was just me. That's not my thing. So after that, I decided, okay, a rest day, I'm going to make myself rest. I train 4 days a week and I rest 3 days a week.
Mhm.
I mean, I walk. I used to run and it was hard on my knees, my hamstrings. It was just not for me. I admire people that can do it. I'm just not one of those people. But yeah. And I think more is not better. Better is better. So what's happened with me is I scaled back the more part and I've upped the quality part. And that's the difference.
Well, and I couldn't agree with you more on that because there's so many times where people just do have that myth where, if I work out, every single day and I'm in there for like 3 hours or whatever, there's like no
Yeah.
way that I'm not going to be able to lose that. But people just don't realize, it's quality, not quantity. If you're going in there and you're really hitting all those muscle groups and you're doing, because a lot of people that I talk to also do the high intensity, which they're in there for, like half an hour at the most, and they get just awesome results with that. So, it's
Yeah.
all about, what your body can take
Hmm.
and just finding that out, which is just a struggle in and of itself. Because I always say, especially with my generation, everyone wants it now and they want it yesterday, so they're not willing, put in the work and just realize that it is such a time process.
It
But
is. And and an interesting thing with that, and not necessarily with your generation, but even people older too, but mostly younger people, it's kind of like people want 100% of the results, but they don't want to do 100% of the work. So it's like you want to get an A on the test, but you don't want to study for it or whatever. I mean, it's that kind of mentality. And in the world of instant gratification that we all live in now, I get that.
I couldn't agree more, and that's the ultimate thing I think, especially working out and getting in better shape. Because yeah, there is no magic pill that you can take that all of a sudden the
Yeah.
next day you'll be. I mean, I'm sure 50 years from now they'll have invented something like that. But I mean, for now, everyone, you're gonna have to go to the gym and you're gonna have to work out. But being someone who's, I mean, you've been since the 80s, and I mean, how has the
Yeah.
fitness industry and how has the health and fitness
Oh,
lifestyle
wow.
really changed since when you started to
Yeah.
get to where you are at now?
Yeah. Oh, it's like a different world
Mhm.
now. Back then it was all aerobic based,
Mhm.
and high impact aerobic based too, not just aerobic, but step aerobics. That was the big thing. Fat was the big thing. So like anything fat free, anything low fat. That was kind of a phase that we all went through for a while. Saw that. Then the whole, carbs are probably still kind of in and out. Poor carbs, they get brutalized like nobody's business here. And so now we have phases like, keto is really the hot thing right now. Paleo was big back in the day. Atkins was big back. I mean, all those diets, they all have their little shining period where they're the popular thing. They'll fade away, and then the next one will come, and we'll just circle through kind of all of those. But what really works is being in a calorie deficit, keeping your protein at adequate levels, and putting in the work. That's what works over the long haul. If you want short-term results, you can do anything.
Mhm.
I mean, really, you could do any of those diets, by the way, work. All of them. They all work if you're in a calorie deficit. That's why they work.
Mhm.
There's nothing magical about any of them. I mean, you can talk keto this and paleo that, but they work because you're eating less calories than your body is burning.
What is your nutrition like now, and how has that evolved as well? Because I know, like you said, you were on Jenny Craig, you did all those other type of
Yeah.
things, but what is your nutrition like now?
Yeah, interesting question because I'm about ready to do a YouTube blog on that
Mhm.
very thing. And I am in I don't know if you've seen over on Instagram the Just Another Muggle Fat Loss Challenge that Jordan is doing. Jordan is my coach too. I don't know if you know that, by the
Mhm.
way. And he and I work together. I am joining him with weighing myself every day, which I haven't done in probably 30 years. So this was new too
Mhm.
to find out how much I weigh. I didn't know. I do now. Um, and so nutritionally, I'm pretty consistent. And my weight that I've been logging the last 2.5 weeks has shown that I generally have for breakfast, I have a couple, two or three go to breakfasts.
Mhm.
Right now, I am in an egg/egg white combo phase. I will do like 2 whole eggs and maybe half to 3/4 cup of egg whites, scramble in some veggies, whatever, some toast, coffee. That's kind of a go to breakfast for me right now. Another go to is protein oats. I do that a lot. I love that. I'll do protein oats with a big thing of Greek yogurt on the top, sprinkled with a little Captain Crunch, just because
Mhm.
got to be a kid still.
Yeah.
Love that. Um, Protein pancakes I like as well. I have a bunch of different recipes I use for that. Those are three of my staples that I go to a lot for breakfast. I may have something in between breakfast and lunch. If it is, it's usually a shake and an apple something because I'm usually en route back and forth from the gym at that time. If not, I just ate before you and I spoke, and I had a pretty typical big bowl of greens, a shit ton of veggies, and I lean protein of the day, whatever I have. It's turkey, it's chicken. Sometimes it's a blob of cottage cheese. It's whatever I got. An apple, a protein shake. I'm probably going to go to the gym here in a little bit, just move a little bit today. It's an off day, not do much. Tonight will be lean protein of the day. Insert name here. I am a potato girl, so I love potatoes, whether it's white, sweet, I don't care. Never met a potato I didn't like. So it'll be a potato thing. And then I eat a ton of vegetables.
Mhm.
So we are all about convenience in this family. We don't do a lot of recipes. So it is those steamable bags, those frozen
Mhm.
ones. I'll eat a bag myself. Just that's me.
Mhm.
That's for me. It drives my husband nuts because he's like, I'd make another one. I said, yeah, because I'm going to eat that. But I always make sure the majority of my plate is vegetables, normal amount of protein, normal amount of whatever I want, whether it's rice, potatoes, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I season it up. That's how we kind of live. I don't meal prep. I don't do the Tupperware containers and the recipes my recipe is chicken in the crock pot, a jar of salsa, hit on. I also eat chocolate every
Mhm.
day in whatever format I got, whether it's ice cream, whether it's some chocolate, whatever. I am a chocolate aholic, so that's in my diet every day. I don't shy away from dessert. I shared some cheesecake with my son the other night. I do stuff like that. I have pizza.
Mhm.
Do I have it every night? No. I used to shy away from that. I would never eat stuff like that. I would never allow myself to eat like that because I thought if I did, that slice of pizza would put fat on my body
Mhm.
overnight. I didn't get it. I didn't understand that you don't gain fat overnight.
Mhm.
You hold on to water overnight. So if you step on the scale the next day and the scale's up, it's not because you gained fat overnight. It's because you probably ate some salty foods and your body's holding on to water. That's why these weigh-ins have been great for me because it's been so many years since I've weighed myself. It's nice to see the fluctuations on myself as opposed to my clients. I mean, it's easy for me to talk about them, but not as easy when it's my own weight.
Oh, and I talked about that all the time with all the personal trainers and online coaches that we have on where, I mean, not many people talk about what the trainers, what that is like, but I always also like
Yeah.
to bring up the fact that, I mean, I'm in Minnesota, so every winter, I have to gain, 10 to 15 pounds of fat every year just to be able to survive because when it's, negative 20 degrees outside, like you do not want to be super lean because you are just going to turn into a human
Oh,
popsicle as soon as you come out. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm still in my fat face. I mean, I usually give it about, I mean, let's be honest, winter here doesn't really end until like May, but I give it until, about usually late March, early April, then I start, slowly losing all of that weight. But yeah, so I mean, as long as you can, as long as you're able to control it, because like, believe me, I do enjoy, in the November, December, having like a milkshake, like once a week or something like that, where I'm just able, slowly put on a little bit more weight. But it's like, just all in moderation. You don't, like you said, don't go eating pizza like every single day of the week because then that's just gonna be
No,
that's not gonna work out for anyone. But
no,
was
it doesn't. But it's so important to know that you can eat like this and enjoy your life
Mhm.
because at the end of the day, when you're 90 some years old, you're going to look back on and say, God bless it. I am so angry. I had that piece of pizza.
Yeah.
No, no. Or, you're not going to be angry. What you're going to be angry at is you're going to be angry at yourself for not allowing yourself to enjoy the company and enjoy the festivities and have some pizza and
Mhm.
some chocolate. And I am trying to get that mindset. I've been trying to get that mindset for myself and translate that to my clients too, because we get one shot at this,
Mhm.
and so it's kind of like, why would we put ourselves through stuff
Mhm.
um, when we have one shot at this? I want zero regrets, and I never say 90 for me. I always say 110 for me because that's kind of my goal.
Mhm.
And when I'm 110, I don't want to worry about why the hell did I not eat that pizza. I
Mhm.
mean, it just makes no sense.
Oh yeah, and yeah, just like that's what I always say. I mean, I love to listen to some of these like deathbed confessions that people have where they talk about like all the stuff that they regret that they didn't get to do, and then that's just really inspiring. Where it's like people, like you said, we only got one shot at this, so I mean, live a life with with the least amount of regrets as possible, and just just sometimes you gotta let loose every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I mean, I couldn't agree with that more.
And it doesn't mean that you go out and eat like an asshole every day
Oh
either.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's always a balance to everything. But just to drive home the point that life is too short not to have the pizza or
Mhm.
not to have the chocolate cake or not to have the ice cream or whatever it is, the donut, whatever it is that you love that you think in your head, that's bad for me.
Mhm.
Because, food's not good or bad. It's just food.
Yep.
It's just food. It's not good or bad. It's either more nutritious, maybe less nutritious, but that doesn't mean the less nutritious is bad.
Mhm.
It just doesn't have as many nutrients,
Yeah.
as the other food.
Oh yeah, I mean I couldn't agree more. And for your specific journey, I mean, was when you decided to become an online coach, was that just something that just over time you just decided to do, or was it people would just come up to you and say like, hey, you really could do that. It's really something that I think you should do, or was it something that you always wanted to do ever since you got started, like back in the day?
It was interesting. I was a gym rat, so I loved being in the gym. Even though I really wasn't making a ton of progress, I loved doing it. And I was a school counselor at the time. And I'm thinking, these two professions
Yep.
are perfect together. I mean, just perfect because really the training piece, there's so much psychology behind it, so much. And I think I have a huge advantage because that's my background. So I back in the day, I talked to people for a living. How good is that? And then why not help people with something I'm super passionate about? Which I was passionate about lifting and being in the gym and getting strong and learning to love that environment. And so I decided I might as well get certified in this because I love doing it.
Mhm.
And so it was self-driven.
Yeah.
It was kind of self-driven.
Oh,
And then I just started working with people very part-time got a part-time gig at a gym. After school was out, I would go to the gym and work about 3 or 4 hours there, a couple days a week, just to learn. That was a great training ground. And then I worked for a training company after that. And then I went out on my own.
And that's awesome. And one of the things that I love to talk about is, the obesity crisis, especially with, online coaches and personal trainers that we have on. And you have, I think an extra added background in that, I mean, you worked in the school system, so you've seen, how the generations have changed, like back from when you were in the 80s, to where it's at now, the obesity crisis. But what do you think are some of the reasons why it's been getting worse? And how do you think are some slight ways that people can, adapt and make it so that it reverses a little bit and get their kids to be a little bit more healthier like they were, 30, 40 years ago?
It's interesting. I think convenience has played a big role. Everything is bigger, the whole supersize, this, that, and the other. Portions at restaurants have gotten humongous. Plates have gotten the size of plates have gotten bigger over the years. And I think just society, everything is instant. Like we don't want to wait. We don't want to spend the time to cook a meal. Everything is less complicated, more convenient. I think that's a huge, huge piece to that. And it's interesting. You bring up the point about 30, 40 years ago. I think there was obesity back then too, but I think it was looked on very differently than it is now. It wasn't a thing as much back then. I was heavy as a kid. I don't remember I remember being called fat a lot. I do remember that, but I don't remember the word obesity being out there like it is now. So I think along the way, and as a parent, what we try to do with our son is just model good behavior from the get-go, good food behavior or whatever, and always offer vegetables. And when your kids are young, I mean, kids ain't going to eat a lot of vegetables, most of them. I mean, and mine was no exception. But I always offered them every single time, and eventually that dude started to eat a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I didn't make a big deal of it. I didn't say, eat your vegetables and sit down here. And, I just think there's a lot of ways to approach it as kids get older. And certainly my way is not perfect. And I'm sure there's a blend of ways, but I think awareness from the get-go is super important as parents. And I think as parents, we need to take some responsibility that it may not be as easy for us. It may not be convenient for us to give some well-rounded nutrition. But the other part about this too, that we see now, is the other end of that spectrum where people and teenagers are obsessed with staying small. There's that has kind of come that direction too. I talk to so many young females who are concerned with being fat, and they tell me how tall they are and how much they weigh. And I'm like, number one, no. And number two, you need to be a kid. I want you to go out and live your life and have fun every day and move every day and be smart about what you eat and just enjoy it. That's it. Don't even think about how much you weigh right now. Yeah. I think there's so much obsessive behaviors with that will keep with them and will keep continuing to surface throughout their life.
I mean, I cannot tell you how many of the guests that I've had on, especially the younger ones that are around my age or just a few years older, that, I mean, they suffered from eating disorders, and then that's what really inspired them to, get in shape. But yeah, I do think, that stuff is on the rise because, like you said, if it gets to one extreme, it's going to get to the other. So yeah, and I just, we've had so many, health and fitness, professionals come on and say what you were saying too, where it's a lot of it's with the parents too. I mean, if you model that good behavior, I mean, eventually the kids are going to take on to it. And that's one of the best things that you can do. So yeah, I mean, I just highly recommend
it
everyone
is.
out there.
And as a parent, we don't get any manuals that come with our kids. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We really don't. And so I'm certainly not a perfect parent. There are none of us out here that are perfect parents, and we do the best we can under the circumstances that we have. The interesting thing is we are all open for improvement, all of us, every single one of us, even me to this day, how I deal with my son who's 21. We're just trying to be the best parents we can be for our kids and have them be the healthiest and happiest people that we're all work in progress, So I mean, I'm just saying no one's perfect by any means, and we all give it our best shot and we all try super hard. And it's just something for all of us to be aware of,
Well, and I always say though, one of the reasons why I love having, personal trainers and online coaches on as well is the fact that like what we were talking about before. Everyone, hears about what it's like for the client, but not too many people hear about what it's like for the personal trainer. And I always like to say, when you have a client that, loses weight and that you've really helped, achieve their goals and, they've bettered themselves and they better their life through you. What is that feeling like? Because like I said before, I mean, we always hear, what it's like for the client when they post, these transformation stories, but we never hear what it's like for the personal trainers. That just really just make everything that you do worthwhile and all the sacrifice that you do and able to put into your time and effort for that client?
Every single thing. I mean, every single thing makes it work. I can't describe to you in words what that feels like to me.
Mhm.
And even, I mean, I deal with a ton of people every day that aren't my clients via messages, via emails, and I answer every single one of them. So I spend an inordinate amount of time doing that. And what I love the most is just saying how much difference my post made to somebody. Something I said changed the way they thought about something. It has turned them around. I can't tell you what that does for me.
Mhm.
Um, I just feel it's a feeling that yeah, I can't describe it in words, but it means more to me than I can express, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I've said I am in a different position than most of my colleagues. Most of the people in my circle of professionals are 20 and 30 years younger than me. Almost all of them, with the exception of a couple, and those are still 10 to 12 years younger than me. So really, I'm on this island by myself. I'm kind of the mother, actually, to most of them. It's so funny. I say I have all these different sons now because I'm just taking care of everybody. It's just the instinct. But they they're in a totally different place of life. They're trying to earn a living too. They want to help people, and they have a whole bunch of other things that I don't have to deal with. And I feel fortunate. I've been through that part of life, and so I want to help them
Mhm.
as much as I can. I want to help my clients as much as I can. And I want to get my reach out as much as I can, because my goal, along with Jordan, both our goals together are to help as many people as we can. I mean, literally, we want to change the world.
Well, and that's so awesome. And again, hopefully this reaches out and really just inspires so many people. But one of the things that I actually just thought of just right up on the cusp right now to ask you is I thought it would be a very interesting question is, we've seen how, social media has changed so many things with our
Yeah.
society and with everything else. But how has that impacted the fitness industry in your opinion and just, the personal training industry? Because we see just how vast of a difference it is just talking about, like everyone seems to be a personal trainer. I mean, everyone seems to like have their own brands that they're talking to. But how has that changed this lifestyle for you since you were in it prior to, I mean, this big social media,
Yeah.
just transformation that transformed everything?
Social media for me was a big intimidation factor. It was really a big intimidation factor for me. And it still is in many ways. But I think it is one of the most amazing places, the way to connect with people. It is a way for us to help more people. Are there people that abuse it? Oh, yeah. I mean, there always will be. There always will be. But there are more people that aren't. It is connecting. I would not be connected to you
Hmm.
if it wasn't for social media. I mean, there's just so many good things about social media. I have met so many incredible people that are now very important people in my lives. Some of them I've never met in person, but we are connected so tightly through what we do on social media. So I am a big proponent of social media. I may not be the best at operating it, but I love it. I
Mhm.
absolutely love it. Over the fear, if I need help with something, I just ask one of them.
Yeah, and I always say, for so many bad things that come along with it, there's way more positive things that come along with it. So I mean, it's really just something that I mean, I think in the end has really helped things. But two of the questions that I really love to ask all of our health and fitness guests that we have on. So for the first one, I mean, when I was in college, getting bigger and stronger, I mean, there are so many positives that came along with that. But one of the negatives for me is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're gonna get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next couple of months before I move out because the job that I'm at is right next to where I live. So, I mean, every time they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in all the groceries. Has that been a similar struggle with you where people just take one look at you and then they just assume that you can do favors for them?
Yeah, you're not really. No, I mean, what is fascinating is when I'm at the gym,
Mhm,
and a matter of fact, a funny story. Not too long ago, I had a guy come over and ask me if I would spot him
mhm,
on his bench press. He bypassed two or three guys to get to me
mhm,
and ask me would I spot him. And
yeah,
I'm thinking, you're asking the 58-year-old lady to
mhm,
spot you on bench. You could have asked that little 30 something guy over here,
uh-huh,
or whatever. I thought, that's a win.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. But no, I mean, I get asked to carry boxes, and still sometimes the reaction is, oh, I can do that. I'm like, no, I can carry this. It's good.
And I always say that is one thing that I really had to get it used to, because I mean, also being 6'3", it's a double-edged sword for me, where I mean, I'm gonna get asked to move stuff regardless, just because being that tall, they'll just say, oh, tall guy can do it. But yeah, it's definitely something that I've had to adjust to. But now probably my favorite question that I'll ask you is something that I love to talk about. And again, it's a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there listening. But when it comes to clothes for fit women, I always like to say, your clothing options can be limited. I mean, guys have their own problems, but women have their own problems as well. I mean, I always say, like, the minute when you said like your shoulders were one of the first things that really popped out, I said, well, with shoulders, dresses aren't going to be your best friend a lot. I mean, jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where, I mean, if
Uh,
you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not going to be your
yeah,
best friend. But what have been some
yeah.
ways that you have been able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be very limited?
Back in the day when I was heavier, I would dress bigger, like bulkier, looser, because if you get clothes that fit you, um, it will show off what you want it to show off.
Mhm.
And I'm not a designer or whatever, but I've just learned this along the way. I used to dress in big, bulky, the heavy, big shirts and things to hide under. I was hiding under everything. Now I the more fitted the better, because I don't want loose stuff on me. I just don't like the feel of it anymore. Jeans were always an issue for me
Mhm.
too. I had that exact same problem. Bigger hips, smaller waist, and so always trying on jeans, where it was a horrific experience, because you can never find the jeans that fit you right off the shelf. You always had to get them altered. You had to do this. It was a pain in the ass. I hated it. I feel like, I mean, I'm confident now, so I'll put on anything. I'm wearing shorts and crop tops in the gym now. I would never have been caught dead. And as a matter of fact, as recently, probably as 10 years ago, I used to think women my age shouldn't dress like that. And I look back on that now, and that was an excuse for me not to do it. That's what it was. I didn't I thought I believed it, but I don't think I truly did. It was my rationale for why I wasn't going to dress like that. It gave me an out, so I didn't have to dress like that. And it's fascinating to look back on that now and
No,
think, wow, yeah, I wear all that stuff now.
yeah, and that's one of those things that I too just adapting that lifestyle and getting bigger and stronger just really can change, where you just realize things that you thought
Yeah,
weren't going to work out. I mean, it's like, well, guess what? I'm doing that right now. But now we
yeah,
go to our audience favorite, my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire. We're going to ask Susan here about a dozen or so health and fitness related and personal questions that we like to ask all of our guests, sort of
yeah.
like a getting to know you part of the podcast.
Perfect.
So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Ooh. Um, all I do is win.
Mhm.
DJ Khaled.
Yep, that is a good
Just
one. I mean, I'm more of an old school guy, where I gotta have my cheesy '80s music, and just the stuff that you were probably working out with jazzercise or aerobics or whatever, just back in the
like
day.
what?
Well, I mean, some of the harder ish rock music, but then some of the more the poppier ish, like Total Eclipse of the Heart is like one of those songs where, like, I mean,
Yep.
I'll come that
Yep.
on, just
Yep.
that type of music, where
Yeah.
that's just the cheesiest, especially when I'm like down, or if I don't want to work out, then I play just the cheesiest thing, or like I have the Rocky 4 soundtrack on my
Yeah. Oh yeah.
and that's like I gotta listen to at least one of those songs every time I work out. But I have a problem. So I have like a gym at home, which is not, it's not like a gym. It's just, like some equipment that I can use for a workout. So I work out, like 75% of the time from home. But when I do go to a normal gym, I mean, I'm one of those people where I got to wait for the beat to drop before I lift. So I've had
Yeah.
times where, if I'm doing like a lat pull down, I'll be like this. And then I've had people come up to me, be like, hey, are you all right? Like, if you pull out your back or something like that. And I'm like, nope, just waiting for the beat to drop. So yeah, I am known throughout my gym as the
So
guy that waits for the beat to drop.
So, it's so funny you bring that up, because I'm a former music teacher
Hmm.
too. So, I also have that.
Hmm.
I, I, I had this one exercise I was given to do. It was a reverse lunge from a deficit combo with a pulse. And literally I had to add another count to it, because the meter of the music in my head was an even meter in four. And this was an odd number. Like, if he ever gives me a 5 count eccentric, I'm like, what are you doing?
Hmm.
You don't give somebody who's musically inclined 5 counts to lower to music that's in a meter of four.
Hmm.
I add an extra beat, so it all works out. I have to do that, so I can totally relate to you.
Yeah, I mean, 100. It's definitely a struggle, but I mean, yeah, I've always tried to like edit the songs so that like they're just like beats where I can just work out constantly. But then I'm like, yeah, that really didn't work out. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh wow! If I could work out with any celebrity, I know I'm going to miss somebody. I don't really think in the celebrity world. Too much. The Rock would be
Mhm.
amazing. I would love to work out with him.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson is by far our most popular answer. But now, out of all the celebrities, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, wow. Wow. I would probably want to train. Oh, gosh, I'm so not caught up in the celebrities. Oh my God. Um, well, if I could train a celebrity, I can't even bring up a name, but I would want to train somebody who's probably been out there showing these little dumbbell moves or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, it's somebody, and I can't even bring up a name. I mean, that's how much I don't pay attention to that.
I can name
Um,
100 one of those, but I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, somebody who just is out there saying, do like 50 of these and then 20 of the, and it's like,
Mhm.
no, let's work hard.
Mhm.
Let me show you what working
Yep.
hard means.
Yep.
Yeah.
They post those videos with like the 2 pound dumbbells. We're like, oh my god, getting ready for my movie role, and then next thing you know, like 2 months later, they're like super lean down, and they're like, okay, you're just making it look like that's all
Yeah.
that you did to look like that. When let's be honest, you had your own personal chef, you had your own personal trainer, you had basically everything done for you. So yeah, I mean that's one of my biggest pet peeves as well. But now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Wow, just one. Just one item in my fridge. Um, Probably Greek yogurt. I am on a Greek yogurt kick right now, so I always want to make sure that is stocked. Close second would be vegetables. Like, I told you I eat a ton of those, so the veggie drawer needs to be stocked pretty full.
Believe it or not, that is the first time we've had vegetables on this podcast, and you're like going to be like our 130th health and fitness guest, and it's the first time veggies because you normally chicken and rice are by far our two most popular answers. But now go to the fun part of the questionnaire. So now, what is the last TV show that you binge watched?
Lost.
Lost. Wow.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's been a while. I don't have a lot of time. Oh, you know what? I take that back. My son and I watched that over time. I didn't sit down and watch it in a
Mhm.
day. He and I did it as a joint kind of thing. The last one I did on my own, I take that back. I just kind of finished it. Was The Making of a Murderer or
Oh,
whatever
yep.
one on Netflix? That one, yeah, yeah, that was the last one I did.
Yeah, that is definitely a good one. But now everyone has one. What is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Oh gosh, a guilty pleasure movie. Um, Dirty Dancing, probably.
Hmm.
That's like back from the 80s, right? Or
Oh yeah,
something.
well for me, I mean, mine is actually from the same year as yours. Again, all my guy friends, close your ears. But Princess Bride is my guilty pleasure movie.
Oh yeah,
Where
that's a
that
great.
that movie
Yep.
comes on, I'll stop what I'm doing, I'll watch it. But yeah, I'm also a huge Patrick Swayze fan. So I mean, I've watched Dirty Dancing a couple times. It's not one of my. I mean, I'm more of like a Patrick Swayze like Roadhouse or stuff like that kind of guy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you say Dirty Dancing, yeah, and that's awesome. But now for our two final questions of the questionnaire, what is your favorite fashion trend of all time, and what is your least favorite fashion trend of all time?
Oh wow, the least. I'll go with that first. Those big bell bottom pant
Mhm.
things. Not a fan. Don't know why. That never was something I ever liked. And for guys, the pants down at your butt crack or lower. Really,
Mhm.
what was that about?
Mhm.
'Cause that was ridiculous. Yeah, not a fan of either one of those. Fashion trends that I like. Um, hmm, hmm. I mean, I'm so not in. I live in this, so this
Yeah,
is kind of
gym
my
wear.
fashion.
Then we can say gym wear. Then is
Yeah,
your favorite then?
and actually, if you want to go with that, there's so many trending now is more of an acceptable way of going out there. So thank God for me because I'm fitting into that mold very well. I never thought I would like skinny jeans, but I do. I think they can be very flattering on some people, not everyone, but some shapes they can be really flattering on. So I kind of like that, but yeah, I'm not a real big fashionista.
Well, yeah. For me, I mean, I asked that question just because, I mean, for me, flannel is my go-to, especially during the winter because it's
Yeah.
you got to stay warm. But my least favorite, I mean, my dad ruined it in the late '90s when I look back at all these photos when I was young. But fanny packs. Now, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. I always say don't get me wrong because women can rock fanny packs. I'm fine with that. But guys, I know they're trying to make a comeback with guys, and I always say if there's one thing that I can do with this podcast, it's to try to stop the rise of fanny packs among guys again because it's like you made that mistake once.
Yeah, no.
Society made that mistake once. It's like we can't make that again. Yeah. Now, for our final question of the questionnaire, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to do everything
Mhm.
perfectly. It doesn't matter. And along those lines, it's okay to fail.
Mhm.
It's okay not to know. It's okay to fail.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, that's similar advice that I would love to give, just anyone out there who's young and just listening to that is just, and also, just follow your dreams and, it's never too early and it's also never too late to make those changes. And I
Yeah.
mean, before we get to the final two questions of the podcast, I mean, I always ask one of the biggest problem areas that I hear of all the time from the women that I have is arms. And as we can tell here, I mean, you probably have some of the best arms. Well, you probably do have like the best arms of anyone your age, probably on the planet. I mean, so what do you recommend, especially for women? Because that is one of those problem areas that they really, really struggle with. Like, what do you do to get your arms to look the way that they do?
Well, and that's an interesting question because I get that question a lot. And the thing is, you've got to look over here at your nutrition. You have to do that first. If you want to lose fat anywhere on your body, anywhere, you have to be in a calorie deficit. You have to be. Science tells us you can't lose fat unless you're taking in less calories than your body burns. So that's the first and foremost thing. You've got to make sure you're good there. You also have to make sure you're eating adequate protein because as you're losing fat, you're going to lose muscle too, and you're going to not get defined the way you want to be defined. A lot of times, depending on where people are with their fat loss or weight gain or whatever, sometimes if you go into a muscle building phase where you actually go into a teeny bit of a calorie surplus, not a lot, a teeny bit, you build some muscle, then you start dialing back the calories and you start losing fat. Guess what starts to show up?
Mhm.
Your muscle. And that's kind of how I did it unknowingly. That's how I did it way back. So I had an advantage coming into my 50s because I built some strength. You could never really see anything because I was heavy. So I didn't have the definition until I got into a calorie deficit and I started scaling back. So you can lose fat and then build, you can build and then lose fat. But if you want to get rid of, flabby, like I always said, people want to get rid of this. Well, you have to lose some fat.
Mhm.
And then the other piece of that is depending on where you are, if you don't have a lot of fat to lose, stop focusing on losing fat. Start focusing on getting strong and start getting your protein up and get your goals off nutrition and into the gym. And I want to get a chin up. I want to perfect my push-ups. I want to lift 2 times my body weight in a deadlift, whatever it is. Get a performance-based goals because I guarantee you, if you don't have a ton of fat to lose, by you getting stronger and focusing on that, it will happen along the way. It just does.
I cannot thank you enough for answering it like that because so many times if I were to ask that question or a different question about like a certain body group, so many people just like list these exercises and it's like, no, that's not it. There's so much more than just doing the exercise. I mean, you could do as many
Yeah.
curls or you could do as many dips or anything as you wanted. And if you don't have the right nutrition, if you don't have the right, calorie deficit, or if you're, like you said, if you're already skinny, I mean, if you're not eating enough protein, I mean, it's not going to matter. So yes, that, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's so awesome. But now our two final questions of the podcast. I love to ask these to all of our guests. So if we were to talk to you a year from now, where would you like to be at in your life? I mean, career wise, where would you just like to be if we were to talk a year from now? What would your goal be?
My goal, I think, would be to have reached even more people. And that doesn't mean getting a following. That's not what I mean by that. I don't care about that piece as much as I do about people getting the message that it's not too late for them to change how they look and how they move and how they feel and all that. Um, a goal would be, Jordan and I coach the inner circle together. So our mutual goal is to expand that and reach more people through the inner circle. That's a huge goal for both of us, actually. And probably one of my biggest goals is to help do that. So just be able to be out there more. I want people to be able to think, okay, if I need somebody middle-aged fitness, they think of me because I will want to help them because they know that I will want to help them. I think that would be an incredible place to be in a year.
Well, and I hope that this helps you all as much. And again, everyone, go and give her a follow. I'll leave links to all of her stuff down below. And now, lastly, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Got to give a shout out to my coach and partner, Jordan Syatt. And if you guys don't follow Jordan, please, at Syatt Fitness, that's who he is.
Absolutely. And I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. And again, everyone, go and give her a follow. And like I said, just looking at some of her posts and some of her videos, I mean, you're going to get inspired to get off the couch and stop eating all those Twinkies and, get in better shape. And again, you guys, I mean, I cannot thank Susan enough for coming on the podcast. I mean, you were a great guest. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey with us. And we wish you nothing but the best. And again, I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. But this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.